Hiya everybody! So, I've had a little idea floating around in my head for a while where I really want to do a watercolour painting that's going to be a background for a little animation. So, I've done a few animations in the past. Well, actually, I've done a lot of animation in the past. That's an understatement. So I've done some animations in the past where I've used either I've painted digital backgrounds or I've painted traditional backgrounds but using like gouache paints or poster colours and stuff. So this time I really want to do a watercolour painting to use as a background. So I love watercolour. It's my favourite medium ever. I find it really relaxing and I really love using it. So I thought I would bring you along with this journey and hopefully turn this into a thing where I actually start posting the behind the scenes stuff of my videos and my content and everything and what I make and how I make it. Spoiler alert, I don't actually use those pens. I do use their paper though. I use their paper. I don't use any of those paintbrushes. I don't think. I use the pencils. But yeah, so this is the paper I use. This is Archer's Aquarelle. It's really, really gorgeous paper. Takes watercolour really nicely. I've used loads of different kinds of paper, but this one just seems to be the nicest one that I found. So I cut it down to this little, I think it's just bigger than A5. And there's some washi tape. Look how cute this one is. That one's by Raichelu. I'm so sorry if I've just pronounced that wrong. Raichelu? I'll leave a link to her shop. It's amazing. Not actually the washi tape I used though. This washi tape is someone else's. Anyway, so yeah, I use a Prismacolor Colerase pencil to just start drawing in my little sketch. I don't really have much in mind. All I know is that I want it to be like really low to the ground and one of those kind of, I want to say Secret World of Varieté sort of thing. You know, like the little Beatrix pottery kind of thing. Berlioz, stop moving around on my desk. Yeah, stop moving around on my desk. Oh, he's just knocked everything over. Sorry. Anyway, yes. So, low to the ground, probably next to a little tree stump. Lots of little plants and stuff around this little kind of... I think I was going for a mushroom, but it ended up kind of having a wood texture. And I hope you're also enjoying my Maine Coon's lovely commentary for this video. I hope it gets picked up because he's chirping away in the background. But yeah, so I was just basically doodling. I didn't really have any kind of plan in mind other than the fact that I wanted this cute little platform where something could sit and, you know, just kind of be going about its little day, I guess. I was adding in, so that line that I've just drawn there is basically the reminder of my light direction, because otherwise it ends up all over the place. So I want to try to avoid that with this painting. I want this painting to be nice. So the first thing I need to start with is preferably a clean palette. So yeah, I'll just clean it off. I thought I'd include this bit because it's satisfying to watch. You know, who doesn't like watching things be cleaned? If you've seen those videos of people cleaning carpets on YouTube, then I can show my paint palette being cleaned. Yeah, so this is a Schmincke watercolour palette. I know it says Winsor & Newton on the front, but the paint inside is Schmincke. These are all individual pans that I've filled up because I'm one of those people that when I buy an art material I have to buy every colour and then I only use like that limited palette. Limited palettes are way better, by the way, than having every colour possible. They just are. So this little paintbrush that I've got here came with a smaller Schmincke palette than the bigger one that I've got. It came with like a little travel palette and I absolutely love it, but I may have actually accidentally thrown that paintbrush away and I didn't realise they were so expensive, so I had to rummage around for them and find it again. Yeah, so these are also like the masking thingies that I use. So with this Molotow, you have to be really careful because obviously it's blue and it can stain the paper, so just test it first. So I prefer to use this Sennilier Aquarelle masking fluid. Like, it's a yellowy kind of, it is Berlioz, it's a yellowy kind of colour masking fluid, and I just pour like a little bit out on the top of my lid, and I use this little like scribey tool, yeah, that thing, instead of a paintbrush, because obviously masking fluid wrecks paintbrushes and I don't like burning through paintbrushes like that. So I use this little metal thing. I got it from Jackson's Art, and it's so much fun to use. Like, you can adjust the size of it, you can make it wider or you can make it thinner, and it works really, really well. It does. Will you stop chirping? Are you chirping behind me? He's sitting menacingly over my other cat who's just trying to sleep. Yes, you are. Anyway, sorry, getting distracted by the cats behind me. Every time I turn back around, he starts talking again. Yeah, so I'm basically just picking out little highlights, places that I want to preserve, obviously, the whiteness of the paper. At least in the starting stage, where I'm laying down lots of tones and like glaze layers, I suppose. It's nice to just keep little bits that are going to stay white, so that I can make sure I keep them that colour. Now, I did write down what colours I was using this bit to start off with, but I don't think I can actually remember or find them now. I do know that purple that I'm using is my favourite purple to use ever. It's a manganese violet, it's called, and it's really transparent, and that makes it really, really easy to actually like just tint the paint instead of like really overpower it, like the dioxazine violets can really overpower it. And that one is, I believe, an Indian yellow that I used. Hang on. Let me get my coat that has all of these in. So yeah, I used the manganese violet. Oh, it's a Mars brown. So I used Mars brown, manganese violet, and transparent yellow, which is really overpowering yellow. Like, it's a really, really strong yellow paint. But that's one of the things that I really love about the Schmincke paints, is that like their pigments are so rich and they're just really gorgeous. So they last forever. Like, especially if you use like a glazing technique, which is basically what I do, where you use a lot of water and you build your watercolour up in layers. So you have all of like the detail underneath that shows through. So like where you can see these little watermarks and edges where they've kind of bled together, that will carry on showing through all the layers that you put above it. So that's what I love about them. But yeah, the manganese violet is just, it's a really translucent one that's really good for tinting, and that one and Mountain Blue are my two favourites for like toning colours and just adding shading in. Yeah, I messed up this part of the background. Like, it's so infuriating because I got it so perfect where I just added in the nice blurry little greens, and then I had to ruin it by adding more water in after it had dried. And yeah, there's that back right hand side of the painting. Like, it bugged me the whole way through, and I don't think I fixed it. I don't think I managed to fix it at all. But such is. So, one of the tricks I've learnt with watercolour, like especially with these pigments and stuff, is they can look really kind of bright and unnatural. So one of the good things to do is, like, whenever you're painting anything like this, whenever you take the raw colour from your palette, is to add just the tiniest bit of its complementary colour, and it quietens the tone down a little bit and makes it look a little bit less artificial and a little bit more natural, if that makes sense. And another thing that I really like to do is, like, whenever I introduce a new colour into this palette, into whatever I'm working on, I'll add like a little bit of a colour that's already in the palette. Does that make sense? So like it unifies the colour, and it it connects all of the tones so that I'm not jumping from like one shade to another. It just basically harmonizes everything and makes it all work together really nicely. So yeah. So anyway, so I start coming in with slightly more concentrated tones when I want to start detailing. So here I'm adding in obviously some darker shadows. These won't stay that dark or that contrasted as I go, because as you can see, like I glaze over them and then that lifts up some of the colours and helps it to blend and all the rest of it, and it's really pretty and it's really nice. And then when it comes to like adding in the shadows, I'll use this bigger brush to basically just flood fill so that I don't get lots of little lines and incidences like that one in the background that I did. And then it's time to break out my coloured pencils, and I really enjoy this stage because like this is when I can add in some extra little details that I know aren't really going to shift when I start glazing over the top of them, because obviously they're coloured pencils, and unless you're using Aquarelles, these coloured pencils will stay where they are, and that's what we want. So I'm using a mix of yeah, I'm getting to that. I'm using a mix of Polychromos with Holbein pencils and Caran Luminance pencils, and those are just generally the mix. I don't have very many Holbein ones, but they're really heavily pigmented. Like, they are super rich pigments. They're really good. Really expensive, but really good. So yeah, I do recommend them. So I'm adding in a glaze of like the lighter yellow to just add in like the sunshiny colours and kind of really emphasize that the light's hitting that side of this little tree stump. And I still haven't decided what this thing is. I think it's a mushroom. I think it's a mushroom, Berlioz. What do you think? He's silent now. Yeah, there we go. What kind of mushroom do you think it is, Berlioz? I don't think he has much of an opinion either way. He's making his way around my desk, standing on everything. Yeah, you are. What, Berlioz? Okay. He's gonna flump down behind my computer now. That's fine. You can do what you like, Willy Ball. Good boy. Half of this commentary is just going to be like me chatting with Berlioz. There we go. He's wedged himself down and he's kind of comfy now. Can I carry on talking now, Willy Ball? Can I carry on talking? Yeah, okay. So I'm brightening up the colours a little bit. Again, just with glazing to pull different bits out and like using a richer kind of violet colour to push those details in the shading. So at this stage, when I'm generally adding in like lots of little details and nice things, I'll add in some slightly stronger pigments that are a bit brighter, and I'll use a heat gun to make it dry faster. You can use a hairdryer, or I've got a Sizzix heat gun that I use, and it just really makes it a lot more enjoyable because you can just dry the layers without having to wait, because I'm impatient. And yeah, I just like making sure that it's all pretty, and then I keep laying everything up. And you know, one of the even like really cool things about watercolor is that if you put color down and it doesn't quite look right, you can just kind of dab it and pull most of it off, which I do multiple times. So I did end up using that Molotow, what's it called? Masking fluid, in this process, and it worked okay. I don't know if it's because the paper wasn't completely dry, but it did seem to kind of stick to the fibers a little bit more than I think the Sennilier would have. So, and like, I think the reason for that is because the like the bullet tip is one of those permanent marker tips. It's quite rough, like it digs up the tooth of the paper, so it ends up just getting caught in there, and like you can really risk tearing your paper. And obviously if you're scrubbing it a lot with your finger, you're going to be leaving like oils and stuff behind, and yeah, so generally I prefer to use the Sennilier. I think I just used that one because it was just more convenient and it's what I happened to have right next to me at the time. And I wanted to play with it and see how it worked, so yeah. I managed to get away with it, but always test it on a part that preferably isn't the smack bang center of your picture. So it's fine, it's fine. I'm still trying to salvage that little bit in the background. I ended up turning it into like a slightly darker leaf, I guess. I don't know. You'll have to let me know whether you think I got away with it or not. I'm using the manganese violet again there to like glaze the shading on the leaf. And generally what I want to do when I'm painting like this is try to use the same kind of colours for my glazes, especially for like shading and shadows and stuff like that. So I wanted to keep all of the shadows towards the more purpley kind of side of the spectrum, I guess, and then build up these nicer tones with all these greens. And you can see that I'm going in with the pencils every now and again, and basically that's just me like mapping out what bit of detail I want to do next, I guess. I don't know, I just really love this process. I find it really enjoyable and it is so relaxing. It's such a gorgeous medium to use and I recommend anybody trying it. It's wonderful. And like, you don't have to start with like Schmincke palettes or anything like that, you know, really any watercolour will work. If I had to choose between having the higher quality paper or the higher quality watercolours, I would choose the paper, because the paper really makes the experience way more enjoyable. Like, a lot of the cheaper watercolours, like watercolour papers, will have like this weird kind of, how can I explain it? It's kind of like a spongy feeling, I guess, and they've got a weird grain to them. Between everything, if there's one thing that I had to choose the more expensive side of things for, I would choose the paper, because watercolour paints, you can do amazing things, even with like the super cheap end palettes, but if you've got crappy paper, then it's just not going to be a nice experience. But you know, there are some really, really gorgeous papers, like St. Cuthbert's Mill and Bockingford Press papers are really good. Moleskine obviously do really nice like sketchbooks and stuff. They're really good. I use Lecterm as well. I really love Lecterm's like notebook, but I love every product by Lecterm. I think they're amazing and I always use them. But they do some really nice sketchbook ranges, and those actually take watercolour really nicely, especially if you're like out and about. So I really love those. And who else is there? There's someone else that does some really gorgeous. Oh, Canson do. Like, they do some mixed media papers, and those are brilliant. Like, especially for using watercolors and pencils. So yeah, just, you know, like maybe get a couple of sample pages. And generally, I don't think there's like many papers that I wouldn't really recommend. There are a couple, like in the cheaper ranges, that perhaps don't necessarily take watercolor too well, but you know, they're really great for sketching on and stuff. So my advice is really just play around with different papers. That's really all you can do. You test out which ones are good. I personally prefer hot press paper because it's got a smoother finish to it. If you want the really kind of, I don't want to use the word gnarly because that has a negative connotation, but it is like a gnarly texture. If you want that really grainy kind of watercolor texture, then you can use cold press or rough press, not press. I think it's not. I don't know. I can't remember. All I know is that I use hot press paper wherever I can, just because I prefer having a smoother finish. So yeah, just my advice would be to play around with different papers, test a few different ones out and see which brand works for you. Arches is just my preference, so you don't have to start with that one. You don't even have to use that one at all. Just use whatever is accessible to you and what you find works. So I'm just trying to add teeny tiny extra layers of colour to these little mushrooms and adding in some more of that the manganese violet wash and glaze over these bits just to keep them unified with the shadow. I don't want to add too much detail on that left hand side of the painting because that's the bit that I wanted to keep quite low down on detail. But yeah, I'm just adding in some shadows again with the pencils and adding in some extra details and trying really hard not to overdo it. I don't always succeed, and then I end up adding too much detail. Yeah, so yeah, I'm almost done with this painting. Oh, there we go. I am done with the painting. Yay! Knowing when to stop with these things is like half the battle, because I would just carry on adding in little details and stuff and I would end up ruining it. But I think the amount of detail that I got in this was a nice amount, and like, yeah, there you go. You can see all of the brush strokes, you can see the pencil, and it's got a bit of texture and a bit of life to it. And you know, it's all been painted by hand, so it's got that, yeah, it's got a life to it, and I really love that. And like I mentioned at the start, so this is going to be an animation background. Yeah, I'm going to be animating a little scene on the top. And what I'm going to do, so this painting is going to be available to buy. And it's going to come with an animated cell, which is this thing that I'm holding up. And you can see that it's just, you paint on one side and then you can see it through the other side as the perfect little animation cell. And then that's going to sit on the top of the painting with the little characters, obviously not little Pokemon, and this gorgeous little Nyan Pan that came from a Sugar Bunny shop. I was basically just playing around with the cell because I've never actually used cell. I've animated on paper. I always used to animate on paper, but I've never actually painted an animation cell before. So I just wanted to play around and see how it worked, and they're so much fun. So yeah, I just copied something off my little notebook just to test to see how it would work, and it came out really good. So this little cell will sit on top of the paper with the little animation character in the middle, and it'd be super cute. Super wonderful. So there it is. I'll be posting the process of the animation as well as it develops. At the moment I'm about a third of the way through it, and I've still got so many frames left to go because it's all frame by frame animation, all hand drawn. So yeah, come find me if you want to follow along with that, and I hope this video was fun. It was fun to make. So there we go. Nice little close-ups for you. Yay. Okay, bye!